Hi everyone, welcome to episode 5 for AI for the Average Joe. Erica and Hayley here from Quantum Rise. We've had some really good guest speakers and experts on the last couple of episodes, which we've taken lots of inspiration from. But what we wanted to do on episode 5 is really go back to practical skills. And Hayley, we were just talking about AI, particularly prompt engineering, being an L&D thing, right? Learning agility and
Yeah. Well, I mean, something that we're starting to realize now as because I'm learning on this journey, each time we speak to someone, I'm learning more. And something that's really starting to stand out to me is the skills here are about being able to write really good prompts, and there's a real need for that, I think, and I think that will start to come out in job descriptions and things that employers are looking for. And also the agility, the being okay with learning something that we're probably going to dump to learn something else, and seeing that as a springboard to learn the next thing rather than the thing that I need to know to do this well. And I think that's a huge mindset shift. It is for me, actually. It's being okay with spending time investing on learning something which is going to change, and it's changing all the time. So, and there's no one answer either. So this is a real journey for people, but without this skill and taking the time and investing and getting curious about it, we're likely to start falling behind as the future world of work needs this skill in the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, the question I have is around particularly education. So where we've got that kind of teacher to facilitator transition, this for me really puts a light on that, because no longer can we afford to be teachers of specific subjects, because the skill, like you said, will be able to prompt or work with AI in the right way, because that's going to be the thing that gives us the knowledge. Our skill is how we get people to do something with it, whether that's prompt engineering or something else off the back of it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's understanding the benefits of it in terms of using it for inspiration as opposed to replacing what we do really well. And I think that's part of this learning curve. But we can't just keep throwing knowledge at people or throwing knowledge at things, because the knowledge is all out there. So it's what's the skill that we need to really make the most of this and maximize it and move with the times.
And embracing tech. And it reminds me of that story of, when maths teachers were introduced calculators and they nearly revolted, and thought the church thought it would be the end of the world. And then we all have calculators on our phone, on our PCs. Like, my maths is terrible because I have always relied on a calculator, but there's a reason why the calculator is there, right? So
and it doesn't necessarily make your maths terrible, because it's how your brain
is.
maths is logic and how your brain works. You still need that. A calculator isn't going to do the work for you if you don't know what numbers to put into it. And that's exactly a really good example, because you still need to have the logic to know what numbers to apply into the calculator. It's not, it doesn't think of the whole journey for you. It only gives you the end result. And I think that's a really good example and analogy to bring to this.
And if you had never seen a calculator before and you weren't confident in maths, if someone put a calculator in front of you for the first time, you probably wouldn't know what to do with it until someone gave you a prompt. 1 + 1 is 2. Oh, right, that's what it does then. And we're in the same position with generative AI now. Go in and put the equivalent of 1 + 1 is 2, which is your first set of prompts, right? So
it's a tool, isn't it? It's a tool that we're learning how to use.
So since our last episode, we've upgraded to GPT-4, which is very exciting. And I have well and truly fallen down the rabbit hole with this. I've spent far too much time on it. Single white female spends all their extra time on GPT-4. No exciting relationships. I'm not going out doing anything. I'm just spending my time on.
That's not true. I'm going to make a friend in ChatGPT. Yeah, well. It's all right.
Reminds me of that movie, The Lawnmower Man. Do you know what I mean? When it's probably plugged into the.
God.
I know, it's scary, isn't it? So I think we want to just play around with a couple of new prompts, just to give people an extra couple of tools in the toolkit, right? Around this stuff. So just one of the things to get us started is I asked you to think about a book that you'd always wanted to read, but you just couldn't be bothered, or you never got round to it. So you'd want to know what the key points are in the book to be able to use that, but you haven't got like a day to sit down and go through and read it because you've got a family and you've got kids and you've got business and everything else going on in your life.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so I had to think about this because I am very much a podcast listener, a talker, an extroverter, learning from people. And when it comes to books, my concentration span is not always there. But I was recommended this book from a friend, which really sort of helped to shift her life in terms of her health goals and her mindset. And it was called The 4-Pillar Plan.
The 4-Pillar Plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I took this on holiday last year, and I think I read like the first chapter, and then it's been on my bookshelf ever since. So
I got lots of those. Yeah, I got lots of those. So who's it by? The 4-Pillar Plan by
Dr. Rangan, Rangan.
Yeah.
Chatterjee.
Spell that.
Chatterjee.
Okay, so what I've done, I've put in the prompt, very basic prompt, summarise in 10 key points the book, The 4-Pillar Plan by Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. Let's see what it does. Okay, here we go, thinking about it. There we go. So again, if you're lazy like us and you're not natural readers, I've got over 100 books that I've never read, but I always think it's a good idea to buy them at the airport and all that kind of stuff. This is a bit of a nice life hack, I guess, productivity hack, if you want to know what the key outcomes are. So just have a look at those, Hayley, based on what you do know about the book. What's the quality of the output here?
I would say it's pretty good. And again, you might want to delve into it a little bit more each point, maybe, if you wanted to find out more about it, or what, maybe
holistic approach. Should we ask it to tell us a bit more about that, see if it understands that? So that's points. Let's give it a bit more specificity. Point 6, holistic approach. Yeah, there we go. Look, delving into that point.
It delves into it.
Physical health, mental and emotional health, environmental factors. Oh, okay. Look at that.
Yeah. And then maybe, following on from that, you could do what practical steps does the book suggest around point 1, physical health, or something like that?
Does the book suggest around physical health? Yeah, let's put in point 1, as you said, just to give it a bit more structure. And you could do this with any paper, any website, any book. I think we spend a lot of time reading through websites, researching, particularly in that kind of L&D HR space. If you need a summary of a policy, for example, it's just like, again, it just blows my mind, this stuff. So I'm doing some work for the kind of governing body for inspection nominees, and just asking that in itself to understand more around the responsibilities of an Ofsted inspector nominee, like the quality of information and the quantity of information it's given me in terms of asking questions like, how do I prepare for an Ofsted inspection? And if I want to go from a needs improvement to good rating, what do I need to do, and what things do I need to consider? And I'm even role playing with it as an Ofsted inspector, asking it to ask me questions. It's just,
I know,
again, there's so much, isn't it?
Incredible.
It's also a good, I found out, rightly or wrongly, it's a good thought partner. Like if you just need a bit of another view or another response on stuff. So the other thing we talked about was a decision that you need to make in your life, right? And we could ask ChatGPT for its view, unbiased, objective view on what that might be. So what kind of thing came to mind?
Yeah, well, obviously there's lots of different types of decisions, isn't there, that we need to make. But something I've been thinking about is I have an incredibly bright 7-year-old, and something that I've been toying with and isn't something a decision I need to make right now is whether or not I consider grammar school for her when she gets to year 11. That's year 7. Year 11.
You
A
go.
bit late
So
by
year
then.
year 7.
Year 7, yeah.
Yes, so that's what, 11 years old.
Yeah.
Let's put that in there. Let's give it a bit more specificity. 11 years old. What are, should we ask it for pros and cons? So the good and the bad, as it were.
Yeah.
Of going to a grammar school in the UK.
Yeah.
I need to make an important decision in my life. Should I send her? I've put, I should, who's her? My daughter to grammar school when she gets to year 7, 11 years old. What are the pros and cons of going to a grammar school in the UK? Is that all right?
Yeah, yeah.
You see what it comes up with? Here we go. Academic focus. Specialized teachers. Peer environment. Wow. Are these the kind of things you've been thinking about? Or
yeah,
is
well, this is the sort of stuff that you make your decision on, isn't it? And I suppose, if anything, it's the cons that you want to be more aware of, because it's always there. Well, what's the downside that I think helps us to actually make that decision?
Yeah. Yeah. And people write these things out, don't they? Sometimes have a pros list and a cons list, and will physically write it out. I guess this is another way.
Yeah, and also this is a good example of us having to put our human personalized approach on this, because each child or each adult or anyone is different. So when it comes to decision making, you can only make informed choices based on what something like this gives you, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it shows you that, again, generative AI isn't just a business thing, right? It's a life thing, isn't it? It's just, gosh, look at that, all of the things to consider. And again, you could delve into each of these like we did on the last example, couldn't you?
Yeah, and find out a bit more about them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
interesting.
What I find really interesting here is, from a confirmation bias perspective, you can also ask it around confirmation bias and the things that you can put in place to stop that, because typically you might write your pros and cons list and it'll be through your view, and you might already have a subconscious decision that you have made. So actually you'll find the pros list is longer than the cons list because you have already made that decision, whereas this might come up with, or it will come up with things that you probably haven't considered.
Yeah.
So even if you think you've made a decision, might be worth still asking it, right?
And and a con on here might not be something in your mind that you think, no, that's okay, that's not a con to me or to our situation. So but it's just like you say, it's that thought partner, it's that giving you that extra, like devil's advocate almost, isn't it? When you talk to a friend or a colleague and you have someone that plays devil's advocate, they never feel comfortable doing it, but it's needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, brilliant.
This is another good little productivity hack, Pareto's law. So you're asking it to give you 20% of the learning of the topic that will help you understand 80% of it. So you're not having to go away and do a bunch of reading again. It's that 80-20 law, which I thought is actually really nice. So the example I'm going to put in was identify, just going to pop the prompt in, how to do a TED Talk, or to understand how to do a TED Talk. So I'm going to ask it for 20% of the learning from this topic. And again, this is just a prompt I found online that I've played around with. There's loads of stuff available that will help me understand 80% of it. So again, you're not crawling through lots of pages on Google or having to watch loads of videos and stuff. You fancy doing something like a TEDx, which took me hours to research around how you do this. You literally can just put a prompt in like that. Let's see what GPT-4 comes up with. So it's recognized the 80-20 principle, the Pareto, which is brilliant. Here we go. The format, the message, story, all of the things you need to consider when you're writing your TEDx talk.
It just gives you that starting point. I know we've spoken about this before, but I feel like we're building on it now from where we started. And it just gives you that starting point, because I don't know, for me, how much I hate a blank piece of paper. So to just give those points, then I'm off then. It's just getting to that point it can be really challenging sometimes. So I think this just fills your paper, doesn't it, from the start for you to go with.
Yeah, 100%. And you don't need to take all the points on board either, right? You can pick and mix what you use and what you don't use. It's important. I think if you're putting something in that's very high priority or urgent, important, caveat with, double check the information that comes out of your generative AI, because, there is cases of it kind of, they call it hallucinations, don't they? Where it looks like it's feeding you really factual information, but actually it is a load of BS, because it's just pulling stuff which it doesn't understand the context of whether it's real or not.
It's just well worded, confidently spoken responses, isn't it? And I think, it's definitely a risk we need to think about. But any tool, if you've got to double check anything, haven't you, that you're putting into any tool, just to make sure and apply that human element to it as well.
Yeah, exactly. I wrote, I played around with this last week. I wrote a LinkedIn post on it called Santa's Special Letter. And the point I was trying to make here was, effectively the prompt that I gave ChatGPT was, write a letter from Santa to a 5-year-old explaining why they're not getting Christmas presents this year.
So harsh.
It is harsh. Yeah. And it wrote the letter, as you can see. But the point I made on my LinkedIn post is, it's the prompt that's #evil, not the AI that's evil. And I know there's that kind of, AI is going to take our jobs, and oh my God, and it's going to take over the world. And the point,
it's what you put into it.
It's what you put into it, exactly.
So,
I just thought that was quite an interesting way.
Letter just hit me right in the heart, though, Erica. Both from my own childhood and my children's childhood. I could only skim read it, and then I just had to just leave it. I couldn't even read that properly. It just broke my heart.
It's like watching the scene in the Neverending Story when Artax the horse dies in a swamp of sadness. It just gets you right there, doesn't it? As a kid, it brings back all those memories. So that I hopefully we've never had a Christmas where we didn't get Christmas presents.
No, but God, it's hit me hard, that one.
It's interesting, but you know what? The letter's brilliant.
It's well written. What I could bring myself to read of it.
So on that note, I think we should wind it up for this episode. But again, brilliant. Like, I guess our takeaway is, like, don't just create content with it. Don't just think it's something that's gonna steal people's jobs. Like, embrace it, right? Bridge that fear gap, embrace the emotions that people have, and get people playing around with the what's in it for me, right? For next steps for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fab. Okay, next episode we've got Brad Stacey joining us from Mission Marketing Group, where he's going to talk about what generative AI is doing in marketing and advertising and PR, and it's really, really interesting. So make sure you tune in for that. But for now, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.